Bundy pinned this man one time. Pinned him again for a 5 count.
He told the referee keep counting to 5.
Starts in
Till 5. The fact of the matter is this. On the 5-time WCW champion. Now can you dig that?
Oh, what is up, Straight Talk Society? This is your host, Trevor, and I'm back with another episode of 5 Count. But this isn't your regular 5 Count. Tonight, I won't be reviewing Raw or SmackDown. Tonight, I will be bringing you another list. You guys seem to really love the list. And tonight, I got a fun one for you. I've been working on this for a long time. Been trying to, record it. So I just decided, you know what, before I fall asleep, let me just go ahead and record it so I can get it out to you. Tonight's list is a top 10 list of the top 10 guys never to win the WWE WWF title. So tonight's list is the top 10 guys never to win the WWE/WWF title. Now, we know that the WWE title has been around for a long time, well over 50 years. A numerous amount of guys have held that title. I think the number's up somewhere in the 50s, have held that title, had the honor to be the WWF, WWE champion. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about the guys that have not been able to wear that title, man. And there are some guys that it's almost egregious. It's almost criminal that they haven't had a chance to at least run with that title one time. Before I bring up the list, I do want to show you guys. Let me see if we can get that in here. This Wrestling with Reality t-shirt. So y'all, you guys want the Wrestling with Reality t-shirt, you got to let me know. Reach out to your boy. Let me know. Support your favorite wrestling show, the best wrestling show on the internet, Wrestling with Reality. Just reach out to me and we can get you one out there to you. Also check out the merchandise shop and grab yourself a Straight Talk Society shirt, hat, hoodie, mug, whatever you favor. So let's get into this list tonight. Now, normally I don't do honorable mentions, but when I was making my list, in full transparency, I was making this list. I had the list, and then I just start thinking about so many other people to where it was pushing other guys off of the list. And I didn't want to commit to it. So I was like, you know what? Let me throw a couple of honorable mentions in there because, man, these guys should have had at least one run with the title. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the picture of the guy, also the time that they were with the company, just so you get an idea of who the champion was at the time. So, like I said, this should be a real fun list. But without further ado, let's get into it. And the first one is just going to, I always throw that one in there that everybody's like, oh, Trevor, what the hell are you talking about? That guy didn't deserve to be champion. That guy had no, that it was good that they never put the belt on him. So let's bring up this list because my first honorable mention is the Swiss Superman Cesaro. Now let's go down this road with me. This guy had it. I mean, this guy had the look. At the time, he had Oksana, so he already had the valet, the beautiful valet that would have just got more heat on him as a heel champion. His wrestling is second to none. I know Vince McMahon didn't like him because he said he was too Swiss and, the language thing, but that's stupid. Vince McMahon, we've already we've already come to reality here, wrestling with reality, that Vince McMahon is an idiot. So like I said, just hear me out. Cesaro as WWE champion would have worked, even if it was in a transitional period. So he was in the company from 2011 to 2022. So 11 years. And remember, at the time he was champion, Jinder Mahal had a run with the title. So just think about that. So whenever you're like, oh man, you're crazy for having Cesaro as WWE champion, remember, we live in a world where Jinder Mahal was WWE champion, which I actually like, by the way, so go figure. But I did like Jinder Mahal as champion just because of what it represented. But so my first honorable mention is the Swiss Superman, Cesaro. Next honorable mention, who was on my original list, but once I started getting guys in, it pushed him further and further down, is Goldust. Goldust's run with the company span from 95 to 2018. There was a couple of firings in there, but Goldust's original run. So you say like 95, like that 95 to like 97 period. There was not a hotter heel in the business than Goldust, and they could have absolutely put that title on Goldust at the time and had Bret Hart in a chasing role, chasing the heel champion. Nobody was hotter than Goldust. Character be damned, which I love the Goldust character. I think the Goldust character is one of the greatest characters ever made, which actually I might do a top 10 list on that, greatest wrestling characters ever. I just thought Goldust was phenomenal. Goldust worked well in the ring, really good in the ring, as a matter of fact. Again, had the valet. Valets are very important to a wrestler's whole look. He had the beautiful blonde who was his wife, Marlena, and they could just get heat with the whole over the top sexual innuendo. Is he gay? Isn't he gay? It would have worked as being a champion. Remember, this was 1995. This is the time where Mabel was a main event heel. Like, think about what I'm saying here. Mabel main evented a pay-per-view as a main event heel. Goldust absolutely could have main evented a pay-per-view, again, being a transitional champion. You don't have to have the belt. And nobody has to go on a Roman Reigns 3-year run. You don't need that. And this, storytelling, wrestling fans today don't care about storytelling. Me, I like long championship reigns, but wrestling fans today, he could have been a transitional champion, man, just to move the belt on to the next babyface that was coming up. So I think I got another honorable mention here. Speaking of Goldust, let's go to the originator, Dusty Rhodes. So hear me out. Dusty Rhodes' WWF run was from 1989 to 1991. So we know that they had the whole Madison Garden feud with him and Superstar Billy Graham, where he actually held the title, but it was taken off of him because of shenanigans, blah, blah, blah. The original Dusty finish, brother. But Dusty Rhodes came into the company and he absolutely megastar from Crockett Promotions. So what does Vince McMahon do? He puts him in polka dots and he turns him into an idiot, cleaning toilets and delivering pizza and stuff like that. But just on the strength of who Dusty Rhodes was and what he meant for the business, this is where I say he could have been a token WWE champion again, just to be a transitional champion, to get the title onto somebody else. He was feuding with Macho Man. He was feuding with $1 Million Man. He had those feuds. They could have easily gave him a 1 or 2 month title run. I know at the time they weren't doing that, but you got a Dusty Rhodes in your company and you don't put the biggest belt that you have in your company on him. That is a terrible, terrible failed opportunity. Let me see. I got one last honorable mention. Like I said, all these guys were on my original top 10, but when I started compiling the list, I'm like, damn, these guys really can't be on it because the other guys are knocking them down. So let's get to the final honorable mention. The Brit. Come on. I mean, let's face it, man. This is a crime. This is an absolute crime that the British Bulldog has never been WWE champion. British Bulldog spent from 1984 off and on to the year 2000 in the WWE, WWF, and never held the big title. The only singles title he had was the Intercontinental Championship in a fantastic match at Wembley versus Bret Hart. British Bulldog had it all. And you know what? And this is the prototypical Vince McMahon guy, the big body guy. You could have put that title on him and he could have had a nice babyface run as a champion, because you got to remember the British Bulldogs were over like nobody's business. I'm going to tell you, the British Bulldogs at a time were more over than the Hart Foundation. I'm almost going to go out on a limb to say that the British Bulldog as champion would have been just as good, if not better, than that C+ player Bret Hart. I know Bones is somewhere just like, he's not a C+ player. He's not a C+ player. But again, British Bulldog could have been WWE champion. I mean, he would have been because they always say, oh, Wade Barrett could have been the first British born champion. No, you had Regal, you had Barrett, but here's the originator, a British Bulldog. The British Bulldog should have absolutely held the WWF title at one point. Remember the feud, and I want to say it was 95 or 96 with Shawn Michaels over his wife, because he thought Shawn Michaels looked at his wife. They could have flopped that belt to British Bulldog, and it would have just heated the feud up even more. Have him beat Shawn Michaels and have Shawn Michaels win it at the next pay-per-view. They were getting into the point where they were flopping that title back and forth anywhere. You were starting to get into that era where that title was going to literally be held by one guy for like 2 to 3 weeks at a time before they kept flip-flopping it. You could have put that title on the British Bulldog and it would have done major business, especially in the UK. So let's get into the actual list now. Those were my honorable mentions. So let's get into my number 10 wrestler who was never the WWF champion. Ken Shamrock. Man, what a wasted opportunity. I mean, you got a legit shooter, a legit badass, a guy who picked up the business, and the guy who actually had great matches, believable ass kicker. He more legitimate than 80% of your roster. He was in the WWE from 1997 to 1999. I didn't realize he spent such a short time, but he feuded with The Rock. He was part of the I almost said $1 Million Corporation. He was part of the corporation. I mean, it was, this guy could have absolutely been the WWE champion. And I think this is why I even made the list, is because something happened and I saw old Ken Shamrock match, and I'm like, boy, that was a missed opportunity to put the title on somebody. There was somebody who could have been WWE champion, but they just completely dropped the ball with it. So Ken Shamrock is my number 10 for wrestlers who never held the WWF title. So I'm probably just going to stick this in WWF because, I'm still a WWF guy. You know what I mean, though. So let's see number 9 on the list. Again, another terrible decision not to put the title on another monster heel that came in from WCW. You had Big Van Vader, the guy that terrorized WCW. You have him on your roster and you don't put the title on him because of Shawn Michaels? I mean, Shawn Michaels is fantastic. One of the best wrestlers ever to grace this earth. But my goodness, back in that time, Vader was in the company from 96 to 98. Again, short run. You don't put the WWF title on Big Van Vader in 1996 when he is coming over here on fire, freshly out of WCW, freshly off a feud with Hulk Hogan. Literally, you don't capitalize on this. You remember when he came in and he attacked Gorilla Monsoon? all the heat that was on him. Why not just use that as an opportunity to have him destroy Shawn Michaels? He should have destroyed Shawn Michaels. I think they wrestled at it was either Survivor Series or it was SummerSlam, one of those two. He should have destroyed Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels could have won it back a few pay-per-views later. Make Shawn Michaels chase for the title. That's all you had to do. Vader should have destroyed Shawn Michaels. You know why? Because look at Vader. Look at him, and you can see why he should have destroyed Shawn Michaels, because he was a legitimate monster. Again, the more I do these shows, I'm just like, man, Vince McMahon is not the genius that we all say that he is, because he made a lot of terrible moves. He left a lot of money on the table. The money is in the chase. We all see that. We all see that the money is in the chase, and you could have absolutely put this title on Big Van Vader, and just had babyface A chase him, just like you did Yokozuna. What's the difference? You put the title on Yokozuna and had everybody chasing him. Same difference. So, again, another wasted opportunity where I mean, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get more egregious. Let's look at the number 8 wrestler who never held the WWF title. Speaking of Yokozuna, I mean, Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, just give me famous blind person X, Helen Keller. Anybody could have saw that this was probably one of the biggest missed opportunities ever in the world. I was just talking about somebody. I actually was talking about this yesterday about the Lex Express. When it's funny because now that Kamala Harris is now the new Democratic candidate for the presidency, I said that she's basically going to run a Lex Express tour. The Democrats had to scurry and get a baby face ready to face the heel Donald Trump. So, and it reminded me of Lex Luger, because everything is like wrestling in this world for some strange reason, because wrestling is life. But they needed to get a baby face heated up to face the big foreign heel, and they heated up Lex Luger. They did the whole Lex Express tour. They got him hot. And there's even video of him having the title, just photoing with the title. And what did they do? They had him beat Yokozuna by count out, where he doesn't get the title, killed him dead. Again, Vince McMahon built this man up to be the next Hulk Hogan. You built this man, again, another 2-year run, 93 to 95. This man went from being the narcissist Lex Luger to being the all-American, real American, slamming the evil foreign heel on the deck of the Intrepid. The whole country's behind him. You have the perfect setting at SummerSlam, only for him to come up short. This should have been higher on the list to me, but the guys I have ahead of him is just a little bit more, only because too, he only spent such a short time in the company. But when you really look back at that run and how they fumbled it, and then they tried to course correct at WrestleMania 10, and it was just a fart in church, and they ended up going with Bret Hart. Like, again, Vince McMahon is a friggin' idiot. Again, the more I go through all this old stuff, I'm like, man, all the credit that I used to give him, this guy fumbled the bag a lot. But my number 8 pick is Lex Luger. Let's get into the number 7 for WWF wrestlers who never won the WWF title. Number 7, the bad guy, Razor Ramon. Again, This was around the time Bob Backlund came back in his 40s and won the WWF title. Think about this. Bob Backlund was WWF champion, but Razor Ramon couldn't be the champion. Razor Ramon, legitimate, like 6'6", 6'8", somewhere around there, 250 pounders, fantastic look, great ring psychology, can actually work legit heel or babyface. His babyface run was just as great as his heel run, if not better. You could have had this man be champion, and again, I think Razor Ramon as champion would have been better than C plus Bret Hart. It absolutely would. I mean, I like Bret Hart. Don't get me wrong, but when I just go down the list of these guys, I'm like, man, that guy as champion wouldn't have been any worse than Bret. Razor Ramon as champion wouldn't have been any worse than Diesel. They say Diesel was the lowest drawing champion in WWF history. Razor Ramon, his title run wouldn't have been any worse. But again, they dropped the ball. They fumbled the bag again. I mean, I don't know what it is, why Vince just doesn't put the title on guys that literally looks like they were born to be champions. I don't understand what it is, but let's move on. Let's go into number 6. Again, I mean, my goodness, it only gets worse. It only gets worse from here. 1987 to 1990, who was better in the company? Who was a hotter heel in the company than the sexiest man alive, No Diddy? Ravishing Rick Rude. Ravishing Rick Rude as WWF champion would have worked. Ravishing Rick Rude as WWF champion, you could have had Hulk Hogan chase him. You could have had the Macho Man chase him. You could have had Ultimate Warrior chase him. You had a legit heel that was a badass, that laid his shit in. Everything he did looked fantastic. This guy was awesome in the ring. And you never let him hold the big belt. And then he goes over to WCW and is multiple time world champion. And nobody batted an eye because it fit. Like nobody ever looked at him and been like, huh, him as champion? No, they were like, yeah, I can see that guy's champion. That guy's a badass. Again, man, Vince McMahon, I mean, Vince McMahon just continuously just fumbles the bag. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. But now we're into the top 5. Let's get on into the top 5, because again, it only gets worse. And coming in at number 5, excuse me, of wrestlers who did not hold the WWF title is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Now, if a lot of you guys who may watch this, younger wrestling fans, have no idea who this is, you probably don't have an idea who most of these guys on the list are. And for that, I say learn your history. Mr. Wonderful, 1983 to 1988 in the WWF, fantastic heel. Him turning on Hulk Hogan. I think it was at a house show in Boston where it was Hogan and Mr. Wonderful against King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd, and the whole time the seeds were planted. The whole Hulk Jr. and I'm calling Hulk Hogan and he's not answering. He's too busy to talk to Mr. Wonderful, his little buddy. Even in Hulkamania's first DVD, he talks about how great of a rivalry, how strong, how tough of an opponent Mr. Wonderful was. If you look at Mr. Wonderful side by side with Hulk Hogan, his body puts Hulk Hogan's to shame. So again, and he legit had charisma. He was a tough guy. They were both from the same place. Like literally, this guy had a better look than Hulk Hogan, full head of hair. I mean, I'm one to talk, but full head of hair. And they never pulled the trigger putting him to have the belt in a time where all they were doing were building up monsters for Hogan to slay. Why not pivot a little bit and have him beat Hogan and have Hogan chase him? And you legit could have, this could have been your WrestleMania. This could have been your WrestleMania 2 main event. Because that King Kong Bundy versus Hulk Hogan match was terrible. This could have been your WrestleMania 2 main event. Like literally. And this would have been a much better match. You could have still done it in the cage. This would have been a much better match. And you could have had Mr. Wonderful as champion with Hulk Hogan chasing and winning the belt back at WrestleMania 2. I mean, this is egregious, just absolutely egregious. He had a legit finisher move, the power driver, just laying dudes out, and they completely dropped the ball. Again, that's the story of this show. Completely dropped the ball. So let's get to number 4. The number 4 WWF wrestler who never held the WWF title is Jake the Snake Roberts. The fact that Jake the Snake never held a title in WWF, period, not even the IC title, is a slap in the face. I mean, the at the time, the greatest promo man. I mean, his promos. Ric Flair had the great over the top promos, but Jake the Snake had the ones where he'll bring you down and make you listen. Jake the Snake, just awesome ring psychology. Whenever you hear people talk about him, they always first thing they say ring psychology. Just ring psychology. He knows how to work the crowd. Imagine the slithering heel Snake Man, the guy that legit walks around with a friggin' snake as your champion. How slime ball of a champ he would have been, how gritty he would have been. Like this, again, you got to look outside of the box. He was in the company from 1986 to 1992. You got to look outside of the box. He feuded with the Macho Man. He had a feud with the Undertaker. All champions at this time. They were going to feud him with Hulk Hogan, but what I hear is that he hit Hulk Hogan with a DDT and the crowd popped too much. So Vince McMahon got scared and he pivoted. You could have had Jake the Snake Roberts, heel or babyface, as your WWF champion. But again, another just fumble. They just completely fumbled the bag. Like it's ridiculous how they constantly do this. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. So where are we now? We are now, we're in the top 3. So, I mean, my list right now has been pretty good, pretty great, I'll say, because these guys that are on this list absolutely deserve to be champion, especially when you look and see who was WWF champion. Again, Bob Backlund was WWF champion in his 40s. And I'm not saying because he's 40, I'm just saying at the time they used him to be a transitional champion to get the belt on the Diesel. But if Bob Backlund could have been the champion, these guys could have been champion too. So I mean, this just it's just absolutely ridiculous. Hell, I think Ivan Putski was no, not Ivan. One of was it Stasiak? I think Sean Stasiak's dad was champion at one point. Like when you think about the list of guys that's been WWE champion. These guys aren't all great. They aren't all Hall of Famers. Jinder Mahal will never be a Hall of Famer. Sorry. You know what I mean? But he was champion. Like it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's ridiculous. So let's get into the top 3. And coming in at number 3 is Rowdy Piper. Again, just like Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. One of Hulk Hogan's greatest rivals. Hulk Hogan talks about this, his rivalry. At one point, he had never beaten Rowdy Piper. He was the only person he was the only person Hulk Hogan had never beaten until WCW, and then they fumbled everything over there. But the rivalry, these they are responsible for the rock and wrestling. They are responsible for the boom period in the early to mid 80s. Like Rowdy Piper as your champion. I see people say Rowdy Piper is a great promo. I don't think Rowdy Piper is a great promo. I think Rowdy Piper he delivers his promos maniacal and stuff like that, and people just love that and call it great. But as far as just character, his character is like second to none. Like he had an awesome character, could have just been a tremendous champion for anybody to chase. Like just think about it. I think Rowdy Piper won one singles title in the WWE when he defeated the Mountie for the IC title. Then he ended up losing it in that great match at WrestleMania 8 to Bret Hart. But Just think about it. Roddy Piper feuded with Ric Flair. Roddy Piper had feuds with Bret Hart. Roddy Piper feuded with everybody. Imagine Roddy Piper and Ric Flair feuding over the WWF title. It's different. It's something different. You don't always have to go to the bodybuilding guy. You don't always go to Hulk Hogan. You don't always have to go to Ultimate Warrior. It would have been something different, and it would have been great. But lo and behold, they never did it. I mean, again, man, when I'm going by this, I'm looking at this list and I'm like, man, the ridiculousness of these guys never being champion. This is terrible. Like it's just terrible. So let's get into number 2. So you're saying, Trevor, who takes the number 2 on the list? So let's get into it. My number 2 wrestler never to be WWF champion is the bump machine himself, Mr. Sell Job, Mr. Perfect. So let's look at this. Mr. Perfect was in the WWE from 1988 to 1996, but from 1988 to 1990, he was undefeated on TV. Obviously, he may have lost at house shows, but that doesn't matter. This man had it all. He had the look. He had the charisma. He was a great promo. He could sell. He basically was WWF's version of Ric Flair. He could sell. He could work anybody he was in the ring with. He could put on a 5-star match with him. Anybody. And the fact that this guy ran an undefeated gimmick, and never held the WWF title is asinine. Sergeant Slaughter was WWF champion. Just, I mean, I want that to set. I want that to sink in. You know, Sergeant Slaughter, Hall of Famer gimmick. But again, WWF champion, hell no. Hell no. And I know it was just to transition the belt back on the Hulk Hogan, but that's what I'm saying. If you wanted somebody to transition the belt to Hulk Hogan, you had plenty of candidates that you could have put that title on. And you could have had Hogan get the belt back at every WrestleMania if that's what you wanted to do. Because Hulk Hogan was like in the first 8 WrestleManias. First 9, yeah. So WrestleMania 10 is when he wasn't there. So he was at the first 9 WrestleManias. And the first one was a tag team. But if you wanted to get the belt back on Hogan, you could have easily put the title on one of these guys. You could have put it on Orndorff. You could have put it on Piper. You could have put it on Mr. Wonderful. I mean, Mr. Perfect. Sorry, Mr. Perfect. You could have easily put the title on one of these guys, and Hogan could have just won it back at Mania in what would have been a fantastic heat-filled match, you know, versus a lot of the duds that we got from Hogan. Even though I do say Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan was one of the most underrated matches. I may have that in my top 10 greatest matches of all time. And that match isn't great because of work rate. It's just like for the people that put WrestleMania 18, Hogan and Rock, as one of the greatest matches of all time. That was the greatest spectacle. The match was terrible. And if you watch that match with the sound off, you'd be like, what the hell am I watching? But sometimes it doesn't matter. It's the characters, it's the wrestlers, it's what they do to pull the emotion out of you. That's why I say you could, work rate, schmirk rate. You could do 50-star matches. But if you can't pull the emotion out of the people, then what the hell are you doing? Nobody cares. So Mr. Wonderful, I keep calling Mr. Wonderful. Mr. Perfect, just a bonehead decision never to have him as champion. Just terrible on every level. I know he was IC champion for a long time, but he deserved to have a run with the big belt, and they never did it. So again, another F for the WWF. And we've now come down to the final. So we've named all these wrestlers. I've given you 4 honorable mentions, and then I've given you 9 tremendous candidates of people that should have absolutely been champion but never got a chance to. So the man that holds the number 1 spot And I think we all could agree on this. The man that holds the number one spot for the wrestler who never was WWF champion is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. So, $1 Million Man was in the WWF from 1987 to 1991. That's the run that I'm talking about. He was in managerial run. He was, $1 Million Corporation, Money Inc., and all that. So I'm not talking about that. He was at his hottest from 87 to 91 is when you really had him at his absolute hottest. And now we all know the rumor is that he was supposed to be the WWF champion at WrestleMania 4, but because Honky Tonk Man didn't want to drop the title to Macho Man, they pivoted and Macho Man ended up being the champion, which I don't think was a bad call at all because Macho Man as champion was great. But I don't think it was a bad call, but it absolutely was the wrong call. And I can say that now. And I got WrestleMania 4 as one of my best WrestleManias of all time because I just love the tournament. $1 Million Man had the absolute greatest gimmick, and all they had to do was let him be champion, and it would have solidified his gimmick as a top 5 gimmick. But they realized that they screwed it up so bad that they had to have him now turn around and make his own title. And it was cool and all for the gimmick, but it was basically saying like, yo, we messed up. So here's a make good. Imagine the $1 Million Man as WWF champion. This guy, former Mid-South wrestler, legit wrestler, work rate again. He could work with you any style. He'll get in the ring and mix it up with anybody. Legit guy, man. And he never got the chance to be the champion. And I think this is the biggest misstep ever for a man to never be the champion when your whole gimmick was that you're the $1 Million Man. I mean, why not have the top prize in all the wrestling? Sorry, Venkat. The WWF title is the top prize in all the wrestling. Why not have the top prize in all the wrestling? The way they fumbled the bag on this is ridiculous that they could just fumble it the way that they did. And I just don't get it. It's terrible on every level. He could have been another guy. If ultimately what Vince McMahon is saying is I need Warrior, Hogan, or Savage as my champion, you got the perfect heel in the $1 Million Man to be your champion. And you know what? You could have feuded him with Piper as an intermediate feud. If you have Piper chase the $1 Million Man, for the title, have him feud Boss Man. There was so many feuds there. Have him feud Warrior. Have him feud a face Jake the Snake Roberts. Have him feud Macho Man. The feuds were there. You had I want to say this at this time Texas Tornado was already in. You could have had him face the Texas Tornado. You had built-in feuds to have a heel champion. You know what it did to it? Would have given Hulk Hogan a break so you could get him some time off of TV, build him back up, make the fans want him, and then when he comes back, you're like, oh man, we got to see Hulk Hogan take down the nasty millionaire. But they ruined it. But Vince McMahon said, you ruined it, damn it. He ruined it. He absolutely ruined it. Sometimes I get accused of just getting too emotional about this because I love it, man. I love pro wrestling, man. But sometimes they just make some of the stupidest mistakes. Just the most terrible mistakes. And I say that this is the biggest mistake of a wrestler who should have been champion, absolutely should have been the WWF champion. And if you're telling me if this is true, again, this rumor and innuendo, that the only reason Macho Man won that tournament is because Honky Tonk Man refused to drop the title to Macho Man, and then they pivoted and $1 Million Man gets pushed down and Macho Man gets pushed up. I call bullshit on that, first of all. But in the event that is true, then that's another bonehead decision by the company because he works for you. Take the damn belt from him. Suspend him. You did it to Ultimate Warrior for not showing up. Suspend him. If you don't play ball, just take the title off of him. Take the title off of him. So I call bullshit on that. I just think it was a terrible decision not to put the title on him. And I love Macho Man. But the $1 Million Man as champion would have just been like the greatest thing, man. He already was making people do stuff. He already was using his money and influence. Imagine him being champion. Like, I am the world heavyweight champion. But they just bumbled it. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a man with a microphone that loves pro wrestling. And there you have it. That is my top 10 list of the top 10 wrestlers never to win the WWF title, man. If you love these lists, man, let me know down in the comment section if you agree with me or you disagree with me. I love to hear you guys disagree with me. Let me know who should have been on the list, who I left off, who you would have replaced and why. Let's have some banter back and forth. This month is almost over. I will be back in full swing with Wrestling with Reality shows starting August 5th. We will be back with the SummerSlam review. So look forward to that. Hey, check out all the other great content that we have on the channel, man. We got something for everybody. You may not be into this, or maybe you are and you want to check out some more stuff. We got something for everybody. Trust me, when I say that this channel is a melting pot, we do something for everybody. That's exactly what we do. But hey, I am Mr. Straight Talk, and you have just watched another 5 count. My top 10 list of wrestlers to never win the WWF title. With all that being said, I will see you on the other side. Peace!
Bundy pinned this man one time. Pinned him again for a 5 count.
He told the referee keep counting to 5.
Starts in
Till 5. The fact of the matter is this. On the 5-time WCW champion. Now can you